Where in the world is Amber Heard? Where did she go? Based on the most recent court document, which is a joint status report in the Travelers case versus New York Marine, and it's consolidated with the other case, it pretty much states that Amber Heard has fled the United States. So where is she living now? She might have fled just to avoid lawsuits. We can look at the joint status report in this case to find out more. That's what we're going to do today. What's up, guys? Colton Richardson, a personal injury lawyer, and today we're going to look at the joint scheduling report that is in the Amber Heard case where the two insurance companies are suing one another, and we're going to look to see where Amber Heard is. So let's take a look at that right now. So there's been some lawsuits in California, Central District of California in the Western Division, where Travelers and New York Marine are suing one another based on who has to pay for the judgment against Amber Heard and who has to pay for defending Amber Heard as well. I think there's over $8 million spent on just defending Amber Heard in that case. And so they're arguing over who has to really pay for that and who also has to keep defending her. So this is a joint scheduling report. And so towards the beginning of cases, they usually do a joint scheduling report to kind of set the stage when things need to be done. It's where all the parties in the lawsuit come together before going to the judge to discuss when they might think that they can get certain depositions done, when they should disclose to experts, when they should finish discovery in totally, when a pretrial conference should be, and ultimately when they might think that they would be ready for a trial. So that's what a joint scheduling report includes, are those types of things. And so we'll take a look at it right here. Pursuant to the court's October 21st, 2022 order on Travelers' motion to consolidate plaintiff and counter-defendant Travelers Commercial Insurance Company. Travelers, defendant counterclaim, and plaintiff New York Marine and defendant Amber Heard have met and conferred with regard to scheduling for this matter and by and through their undersigned counsel, and hereby submits this joint scheduling report. So, like I just mentioned, they all came together, talked about it, and thought that this might be the best avenue on when things should be scheduled and what they can agree upon. And the court's going to break down each one of their arguments right here on certain things. And so first we have Ms. Heard's position. Ms. Heard respectfully submits that it is premature to enter a scheduling order for two reasons. First, there's no diversity of citizenship. So there are two ways to get into federal court. Two ways that federal court has jurisdiction to handle a certain case. Two ways for the most part. The two most important reasons that a case would be in federal court is diversity of citizenship, like Ms. Heard is arguing, or federal question. The federal question is a violation of a federal law. That's not the situation in this case. So the parties are saying that the federal courts have jurisdiction over this case because it is based on diversity of citizenship. And that means that all the plaintiffs are of different jurisdictions. And what that means is all the plaintiffs have different domiciles than all the defendants. On top of that, there also has to be in dispute over $75,000. If you meet both of those elements, then you have diversity of citizenship. And so what they're saying right here is there was no diversity of citizenship. Ms. Heard was not a resident of the United States when New York Marine filed its lawsuit and is not now a resident of the United States. Therefore, this court lacks jurisdiction. Because the defendant is a United States citizen but has no domicile in any state, she is stateless for the purposes of 28 U.S.C. Section 1332A3. Such stateless status destroys complete diversity. And so what that means is she is a citizen of the U.S., but she's saying that she doesn't live in the United States. So where has she gone? Did she leave the country to avoid lawsuits? Did she leave the country to escape any judgments that might be against her? Why did she leave? She doesn't say in this. They just say that she was not domiciled. They don't give any evidence of that. to show that she wasn't domiciled. And what domicile means is that you reside somewhere, just your residence. So I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That is my domicile. If I go travel to Atlanta, Tulsa, Oklahoma is still my domicile. So she obviously does not live in the United States, is what she's saying. So where is she living? I don't know. Something we'll have to find out. There'll have to be lots of discovery over this issue as well. Second, this litigation should not go forward at this time. The continued prosecution of these actions is prejudicial to Ms. Heard's defense in Depp v. Heard lawsuit, which is currently pending on appeal. You might be thinking, we already finished that trial. That's over. The jury gave $10 million or whatever sum to Johnny Depp. However, Amber Heard now has an opportunity to appeal that and ask the judge to change the amount or completely overturn it, and then they'd have to do another trial. It's unlikely that they'll do another trial. It's a pretty high standard, but it's a possibility. And so there's not a judgment yet. It's not finalized because it's on appeal. Ms. Heard understands that Travelers does not oppose the request for a stay of the consolidated action and that New York Marine does not oppose a stay as to 3 of its 4 causes of actions. However, Ms. Heard understands that New York Marine opposes a stay as to its first cause of action and as to the claims at issue in the Travelers lawsuit. Therefore, as she has advised the other parties, Ms. Heard will file a motion to stay or dismiss these actions pursuant to Montrose Chemical Corp v. Superior Court and its progeny. In addition, Ms. Heard intends to move for judgment on the pleadings as to each of New York Marine's first cause of actions against her, New York Marine's first, second, and fourth cause of actions, which address New York Marine's duty to indemnify a judgment in the Depp lawsuit, and are not ripe unless and until there is a final judgment in the Depp lawsuit. And like I just said, there's no final judgment in the Depp lawsuit because it's still on appeal. The judge has not finalized that, and so they're waiting for the appellate courts to rule on it. So there has been no final judgment. That means one of New York Marine's claims is not final. Duty to indemnify. There you go. New York Marine's duty to indemnify judgment. But there has been no judgment yet. That means they cannot indemnify her yet, which means it's not ripe because there has been no final judgment. And that's what they have to wait for. And so really, New York Marine can't bring that lawsuit saying we're not indemnifying until there is a judgment because nothing has happened yet. Given the appeal, there's no such final judgment. New York Marine's third cause of action addressing New York Marine's duty to defend Ms. Heard fails as a matter of law because the statute relied on California Insurance Code Section 533 does not excuse an insurer of its duty to defend. Despite the above, New York Marine will not agree to postpone depositions of Ms. Heard's former defense counsel in the Depp lawsuit noticed for mid-November in the Travelers lawsuits. Now, there's already Travelers lawsuit. Now, there's already New York Marine's lawyers, which I guarantee you they have more than one. There is Travelers lawyers. There are the lawyers that they're deposing, the former defense counsel. So already up to 3 sets of lawyers. That defense counsel will have a set of lawyers. We're up to 4 lawyers. Ms. Heard will have lawyers. We're up to 5 sets of lawyers. They could have multiple lawyers in there as well. And that is extremely difficult for scheduling purposes to schedule one deposition, just one. And so you want to stay with that date. And once you have it set, you don't really want to move it. So that's why they don't want to agree to postpone those depositions. Ms. Heard believes that discovery should not proceed pending this court's determination on the jurisdictional issue and as to whether the consolidated action should go forward given the appropriateness of dismiss or stay under Montrose. If necessary, Ms. Heard may move for a protective order regarding these depositions, which makes sense because if there's no jurisdiction over her and she doesn't appear at these depositions because the court hasn't decided yet, then she could be prejudiced because she didn't have an opportunity to ask questions of her former defense counsel. Would she ask questions? She might, or her lawyer might, but I would move for a protective order as well, Now we'll move on to New York Marine's position. Personal jurisdiction over Miss Heard. New York Marine has received no evidence establishing that Heard was not a resident of the United States at the time New York Marine filed its complaint against Heard. So Amber Heard hasn't shown any evidence that she was not a resident of the United States. And such evidence might be where she gets her mail, paying bills, that sort of thing. And she might not have those yet. So that's interesting. Ms. Heard's request to stay this insurance litigation. New York Marine understands that Heard intends to file a motion to stay and will not oppose a stay as to the second, third, and fourth cause of actions. However, New York Marine's first cause of action is ripe as there is an existing judgment against Heard, and New York Marine is seeking declaratory relief as to its rights and duties regarding that judgment if the judgment is affirmed or otherwise not disturbed on appeal. There is a judgment. It's not a final judgment, though. And so what New York Marine is saying is it is ripe because the jury has already decided, but it hasn't been upheld on appeal, so they're still waiting. So they went ahead and made the claim that they do not have the duty to indemnify Ms. Heard to pay for that judgment. So that's New York Marine's position. As to the temporary halt to scheduling depositions on September 23rd, counsel for all parties agreed to continue previously scheduled depositions provided that the depositions were moved to a date certain, and those depositions were set for mid-November based on the agreed availability of the deponents and counsel for all parties. So what they probably did was subpoenaed Amber Heard's former counsel and just sent notices to all the other lawyers so that they could get the ball rolling, because sometimes you ask for deposition dates for a witness and maybe the witness doesn't get back with you, maybe the other lawyers don't get back with you. So what you do is you just send a subpoena and then you send a notice to the other lawyers. That means it is on that day. It is happening on that day unless the parties can agree otherwise. So what it looks like they did here is that they subpoenaed Amber Heard's former counsel, and then they agreed to move it so that they had a certain date that worked for everyone. So that's not uncommon, but obviously it looks like they want to keep that deposition because they already scheduled it back for September, and now they're scheduling it for November. At no point during the rescheduling of these depositions was there any indication that jurisdictional questions would be raised. Accordingly, New York Marine believes it is appropriate for the deposition scheduled in mid-November to proceed as currently scheduled. So we move on to Traveler's position. Personal jurisdiction over Ms. Heard. This issue just arose. Travelers does not have adequate information to take a position. Obviously, they don't have any information or evidence that she left, and it looks like Ms. Heard just kind of dropped this on them, and so they don't really have a position as of right now. Let me know in the comments what you think she's doing. Did she leave the country on purpose? Did she leave the country to avoid these lawsuits? Maybe the bad spotlight that has been put on her from the lawsuit. Why do you think she left? Put that in comments and let me know your thoughts. Moving on to Ms. Heard's request to stay this insurance litigation. Ms. Heard asserts that she will be prejudiced by this consolidated insurance litigation proceeding while the Depp lawsuit is active. Travelers will not oppose her request for a stay on that basis. Travelers understands that New York Marine will argue that it should be able to proceed with the part of its case. Travelers strongly opposes a partial stay of the insurance litigation, which allows New York Marine to move forward in part as it wishes. Most of the time, if there is a stay in the case, they stay all of discovery, not just part of the discovery, not one or two claims, not some of the claims. They stay all of them, because how do you decide we're staying claim 1 and 2, but not 3? So we can do discovery on claim 3, but where's the overlap? It can be hard. And then say we do depositions. Normally you only get one deposition. One deposition of a single individual. So if they wanted to depose Amber Heard's former counsel based on that one claim, based on her testimony, they can then, in another year, depose her again and ask questions in addition to the third claim. They can ask questions on claim 1 and 2 and add stuff from claim 3 again. So they're getting 2 bites at the apple. And for me, I may talk to someone and be asking questions, and as soon as I leave, I then remember my other questions. I can't think of them on the spot. So that gives them another opportunity to ask those questions. So usually they stay the whole case, not part of the case. This would be prejudicial to travelers and Ms. Heard, and it would be highly inefficient. It likely will drive the parties into discovery disputes, which can be avoided by a complete stay. Like I just said, discovery disputes. If the court stays the insurance litigation while the Depp lawsuit is pending, it should stay all of it, which normally happens. Temporary halt to schedule depositions. Ms. Heard has asked that the parties agree to postpone 2 scheduled depositions until the court has ruled on Ms. Heard's request for a stay. Travelers has no objection to this request. New York Marine objects, like they already mentioned. So they don't object to that. I think they're just hanging on, waiting for the appeal to finalize. So Travelers is the main one that defended Amber Heard. And Travelers also believes that New York Marine should have had some part in that as well. So they're asking New York Marine to pay for some of this. And so New York Marine's really on the defense. Request for postponement and agreed modified pretrial dates. Ms. Heard requests that the court adjourn its hearing set for November 3rd to December 1st or another date convenient for the court. If the court determines that it is appropriate to enter a scheduling order, the parties agree to the following pretrial timeline. So deadline to hold private mediation, which mediation is just where the parties all come together with usually a third party that goes back and forth between all the parties and facilitates negotiations. So the court's putting a July 31st, 2023 deadline on that, possibly, and a pretrial conference in a year. So that's not unusual for a court to put it out that far. So let me know what you guys think, where Amber Heard went, why you think she left, and what the court should do in that situation. And we'll follow this and keep up with it to find out exactly where she went and why she went, and hopefully we'll get to know that information. I'll see you next time.